I'll stop gushing now. Maybe I won't, but I will. Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is my February wrap-up. This month I've read 9 books, and I'm currently reading like 3, so they will get an honorary mention because I don't have the time to finish reading 3 books by the end of the month. So I'm gonna head straight in and talk about my first read of the month, which was Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Nam-Joo. And this was a really good feminist book in a way. It's a novel, but it's telling the story of a South Korean woman's life, and I found it oddly relatable for someone that grew up over 10 years before I did on like the other side of the world. I found this weirdly relatable, which doesn't say much really for the way of feminism. So in the story, our main character, we start with her as an adult woman with a child and husband, and she seems to be having a mental breakdown somehow, or she seems to be tuning into other women's voices and speaking as if she is them, much to the sort of worry of her husband. So I think that's quite interesting. I have a feeling that one of the women's names that she speaks as has the same name as the author. We only get a little bit of that. We only get a little bit of like the present. And then we are launched into her childhood. She had quite a working class childhood, I would say. Her mum had to do jobs from home while the dad worked to make ends meet. It shows her mother's journey slightly as well, in her worries of not giving birth to a boy. They preferred to have boys, and so would abort baby girls. And yeah, there became a real imbalance in the population. She is one of 2 sisters and a brother. Her brother got preferential treatment all of the time, and we see her grow up and her experience these kind of terrible experiences caused by a structural misogyny. I could really connect with some of the points of this book. Not everything, there are some things that are definitely more extreme than I've experienced, but I could really see eye to eye with some of the terrible experiences and the terrible men, basically, that she has come across in her lifetime, and the pressures that come with being a woman in the workplace especially. I found that really interesting. And yeah, I really loved this as a piece of feminist work, and I think Nam-Joo actually puts forward the male voice really interestingly. She perfectly shows the level of entitlement and self-involvement that can come with a male voice. Also, I listened to this on audiobook, and there was a male voice used as the narrator, which I found interesting, and I think that matched it well, because we are not hearing the protagonist's own story herself. It's being told by someone else, and to have that sort of almost tainted with this male voice over the top. This is a spoiler, but I will just leave a time which you can skip to. You might be able to see a cat right now. So the last chapter is the psychiatrist of our protagonist, who is a man who kind of momentarily talks about our protagonist, and then very quickly just moves on to talking about his wife and the things he might have done wrong, and how this protagonist's like psychological break might not actually be a psychological break, but a genuine reaction to the world that she has grown up in and how difficult it is for women in this world. But he is both saying that and also still being very much on his own side, and then immediately talking about himself and his own family. So the last chapter is our protagonist's voice being stolen, basically, and used for another purpose by a man. That does definitely drill a point home, but I do feel like this novel could have done more. It's quite a short novel, but I feel like there could have been more explored. There could have been more to this story in general, more of a plot in a way. It did feel like this is what it's like to grow up in South Korea, and basically we need feminism. We still need feminism. It's always going to be a thing. Like, it felt like almost a manifesto in that way, but not a manifesto at all. It feels like a short memoir in a way. A short memoir based on times where her life has been restricted by men, and her life has been restricted by her being a woman in this world. And it's driving a point home and showing a life rather than creating a plot that draws us in for its own reasons. I did enjoy this, but I don't think I enjoyed it because of the story, because of the plot itself. I think I enjoyed making those connections and seeing another life from a different part of the world, from a time a little before mine. Maybe if I read this when I was a teenager, this would have kind of blown my head off. Like, when I was first exploring feminism, if I read this when I was younger, I would have been pretty rocked by this. It's definitely a good read for someone who maybe isn't as aware of misogyny, doesn't necessarily see the need for feminism. I would like men to read it, to be honest, but I'm not sure if they would pick it up, which is a problem in the first place. Yeah, I think it really just puts you in a time and place and makes you realise that there is still so much work to be done. So next on my list is The Most Precious of Cargoes by Jean-Claude Grumberg, and I talk about this and 2 other books in my vlog. It's the first one I've done. I think it just captures the vibe I want to convey. It's chill, it's chatty, it's got snow in it. What more can you want? So yeah, just go and check that out. But I will just quickly go over the 3 books that I talked about in that vlog. So first being Most Precious of Cargoes. I'm just going to reiterate some of the points that I thought of at the end, which is, it feels like a book to be shared. I want other people to read it. I love the voice running throughout this book. It's very easy to read, very easy, very short, and it has a very, so the writer's French, and I feel like it has a very French way of just turning you on your head at the end. I really loved it for the fairy tale aspect, the way you kind of delve into that, and then you just get absolutely pulled out of it by Jean-Claude Grumberg at the end, where he gives you a slap around the face, basically, and is like, this is a story, nothing is real. That's not a spoiler at all either, because on the back of the cover it says, you want to know if this is a true story? Of course not, absolutely not. And it's kind of, that kind of gives you some of the vibe of this book. It's almost playful, whilst being a fable of the Holocaust. I just want more people to read this and to talk about it with, basically. Yes. So the next book I talked about in that vlog was Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, which was amazing. I want to read more of Akwaeke Emezi. My criticisms of it are basically because it's a YA, and I don't really read YA at all, and I didn't even really read YA as a teenager. So when I'm like, oh, I want this to be darker, I want to know more of the detail, I want to know more of the past, I think that's just me wanting the amount of detail and depth and darkness of an adult novel, and it's unfair to put that on Pet. But aside from that, it's a great YA book, I think. uh, as someone who doesn't read YA, as someone completely uneducated on YA, it's a great YA book, and I think I just need to read more of Akwaeke Emezi and read Akwaeke Emezi's like adult fiction, because it's just really beautiful writing, just turning little tropes on their head. The parents don't have to die in order for the kids have a story. They're even a part of it. I don't know, I feel like it's almost interesting if you are wanting to write YA fiction, because I think it just subtly does some things different, and I really appreciate that. And the third book that I read was In the Dream House by Carmen Machado, and I flipping loved it. I've not read her before. I want to read her again, and I think it was just such a beautifully structured memoir. It's a memoir of her abusive lesbian relationship, but she does it in a way, so she does it in second person, which is often, it's not used very much at all in literature in general, and often when it is used it can be really jarring or feel really gimmicky, but I think in this it creates that feeling of dissociation that you can get with trauma, as does the style of the book, where it's presented as a bunch of vignettes. Each chapter is like Dream House as adventure novel, Dream House as pulp lesbian fantasy. That and the second person creates this kind of detachment. First, that probably allowed Machado to just explore this in the first place, because obviously it's a very hard thing to write about. I understand that as a poet, actually, like having that veneer of experimentation can really help you explore things that you wouldn't have otherwise, that you wouldn't have overtly. And she doesn't shy away from anything, but I think it's just really creatively and beautifully done, and I haven't seen it before, and I want to see more of it. I just want to read more like creative non-fiction basically now. This year I have just jumped into non-fiction, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's not that I've been against it before, but now I am just sold after reading this. It's just absolutely fantastic. It explores ideas that need to be explored, and yeah, I want to write like her. So next, I'm so excited about this book. In these times, it's really hard to just Zoom someone or talk to someone because nothing happens. So it's nice to have an activity. And I really like reading with people, but I don't get the chance to do it because I have a feeling that a lot of people have like trauma from English class reading out loud. Yes, but my QVP and I decided to read together. She bought me the first one of this series last year, and I read it and enjoyed it. And so we decided to read the second one together. Closed in Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, and wow, like, I loved it so much. Like, I loved it so much. Just gushing. This is a minor spoiler again. So these books have shared protagonists, but they are not necessarily who you would expect. So a side character from the first book becomes one of the protagonists in this book. I will only hint at it though, I won't say it explicitly. So this book tells two stories. One story of an AI that has come out of a ship and into a human style body, and is now trying to adjust to that, and it's so beautifully done. But she's also away from most of the people that she knows. She's been taken in by a techie, was basically genetically engineered as a slave. There's no other way of putting it. Which sounds really dark, but Becky Chambers manages to make her books like a flipping warm hug. So we follow these two characters through their stories in different timelines. We explore the past of our techie ex-slave character, and basically how she got out of this sort of terrifying big brotherish allegory of the cave style childhood, and we see how she escapes from that and is now here in present day, living her own life. And we also follow in present day AI becoming accustomed to her body, becoming accustomed to living on a planet, and it's just so beautifully done. Not much happens in these books. Like, yes, there is a plot, but all of these books are really character based, and I absolutely love that, because I feel like in sci-fi and fantasy sometimes plot takes over, then it becomes a little bit hollow or a little bit repetitive with characters. But this, yeah, this is just such a beautiful, beautiful book, and the end is just lovely, lovely, lovely. And yes, 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 yes. And I really hope that we see these characters sometime again. I am desperate to see these characters again, because I just think it was beautifully done. Yeah, it just explores the angst and the dysphoria and the sensory overwhelm of being in this completely new form that you're not used to. And oh, yes, 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 yes. I need more of this in my life. This was so perfect for reading right now. Now for a complete change of pace. Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. A lot of people have read this. It's the Booker winner from last autumn. I really enjoyed it. I really did. I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I just think it was such a beautiful exploration of working class Glasgow. I have some family history from Glasgow, and I also I'm working class, and I thought that this just represented it so well. I can't relate to a good deal of this. Like, I did not grow up around drugs and alcohol and stuff like this. Shuggie Bain has a very, very difficult childhood. I think it just creates these characters, especially even like the side characters, just the way they act, the way they kind of have to hustle through their life in a way that isolates them. Yes, I just think it was just done so well. I've heard some people say it's like trauma porn, and no, I completely disagree. I think it is an honest representation. There is a bit within the first few pages where I was shocked. It lets you know what kind of book it is very, very quickly. This is not a happy book. There is literally one chapter that I could call even remotely happy, and even then, like, some terrible stuff happens in it. But it's definitely not trauma porn. I think literature has become really quite overwhelmingly, or has been quite overwhelmingly middle class. Obviously, working class writers probably don't get the chance to become writers in the same way that a middle class person might. And I just think it's really important that we tell stories like this. This isn't just a story about being working class, it's a story about growing up. I can kind of tell that this is a debut novel, a first novel. I know that Douglas Stewart has written other novels, but this is the first published, I believe. But a couple of bits where people are interacting physically, and I had to read over the paragraphs a couple of times to actually figure out what was happening, who was touching who. I think it just needed a little bit more work in that way. I think that will just come with time, especially if you're writing such a kind of slow character-based book like this. It must be difficult to then jump into a bit of action that's rather intense. Also, this book did make me cry. I didn't expect it to. Really? I knew it was sad, but I didn't expect it to make me cry. And then there was a bit towards the end where something kind of inevitable happens. You don't know whether it's actually going to happen though. It just caught me on the last line as I turned the page, and then I was like, okay, I'm crying now. Just as I turned the page, I thought, I don't think I actually cried during this book, and then I cried. So yeah. But it's definitely worth a read. I think we need more working class writing. We definitely do. And it doesn't have to be as traumatic as this, but I think it is just needed. Someone's review was just saying, oh, I live in another country and it's really interesting to see how my working class life compares with that of Shuggie Bain's. So this is not an unrelatable story. I think there are bits of it that really kind of struck home for me, especially in some of the side characters, some of these sort of people that are driven to selfishness and isolation. I can't tell if it was, you know, meant to be the Booker winner. I'm glad that people are reading this. Also, I heard that it was going to be made into a TV series, and I'm sad about that. I don't want that to happen. Please don't ruin it. I think that would just turn into a very dramatic kitchen sink drama and take some of the life out of it, really. Just milk this cash cow for all I can, aren't they? But yeah, that's me being grumpy. I need to read out the title because otherwise I'm not going to be able to tell you it. So, next I read Divergent Mind, Thriving in a World That Wasn't Designed for You by Janara Nuremberg. It's a non-fiction book about neurodivergence, which includes a whole spectrum of different things like autism, ADHD, HSP, I think maybe even like BPD. There's a whole bunch of things. So, neurodivergence. Janara Nuremberg is a journalist, and you can tell that in this writing. She uses a lot of other people's voices, a lot of experts, and a lot of individuals with these conditions themselves. And I think it's just really interesting from that perspective, just grabbing all these different voices. I think it's a great starter. I think it does focus in a lot more on ADHD and HSP, which is highly sensitive person, more than other stuff. One thing I did find really interesting in this book is the way that it looks into women driving psychiatry, what that looks like. So HSP is something that was defined some time ago. It's been really interesting to see the development and exploration of this almost completely through women, and it shows how male-dominated psychiatry has always been. It also explores the treatment of SPD, sensory processing disorder, and because people don't really know how to deal with it yet, it's been taken on in a very holistic way, which I find really interesting. So each person that is getting treatment at these places is getting one-to-one treatment, very specialised to them, and I think that's an interesting way to potentially see the future of psychiatry, and these people seem to really thrive from it. I think this book would have been really good if I read it like 2 years ago, but I kind of have a lot of knowledge around this stuff anyway. It was just kind of interesting to hear what these new practices are and what's going on in America. I don't regret it. Next we have Helen Oyeyemi's What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours. And I was a bit confused as to what this book actually was. I was of the idea that it was a short story collection, but it's a collection of stories, I would say, rather than a short story collection, if that makes sense. Like, some of these stories are interconnected by characters, but some aren't, or some might be, and I just haven't figured it out yet. It's not set out like a short story collection. There's no contents in the front, so it looks like a novel on the inside. I think this book might have been smarter than me. Basically, this novel seems to be all about misdirection. It almost feels like a mystery, leading you down the garden path to nowhere. Maybe somewhere, but probably nowhere. Where you're trying to put the pieces together, but they never actually come together. They're all just separate stories at the end of the day. I think I'm curious to read more of Helen Oyeyemi's work, because I'm like, I just want to figure you out. It has puppets in it, which I just fucking love puppets. I really fucking do. I love it so much. So puppets in a story is like, yes. It has casual queerness, which I very much enjoy, just having it there, present. It has different timelines, different countries. Most of the characters are not white British. It's not a central part of it, I don't think. Yes, and just some crazy magical realism. I just really enjoyed the exploration of ideas in this book. It's like, I don't understand the ride that I'm on, but I'm happy to be here. I think that's what this book can be summed up as, like, happy and confused. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying it. I just want to read more of her stuff and try and figure her out, because I don't know. Next we have Passing by Nella Larsen. I first read this when I was in drama class at school. I think maybe our teacher just wanted to expose us to it. I remember enjoying it. I remember the end being surprising, and now I've read it as an adult and I really love it. This is a true classic in my eyes. I would put it on the same level as Gatsby for me. It was published in the same decade, so they're of the same kind of zeitgeist anyway, Nella Larsen and F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I feel like I really can't sing the praises of this book high enough. It explores race, it explores class, it explores obviously passing and what that entails, passing as white when you're black. In the same way it has Gatsby, it takes this character and puts them on a pedestal. This strange character living a kind of a dangerous life, a life of dangerous mystery. And I just thought it's just explored so well. Nella Larsen can take a few seconds of time and expand them into a whole chapter in a way that keeps me engaged, which I just really adored. I need everyone to read this, and I think it's just so beautifully done. I don't know whether I will read the Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which is based off of Passing, but I just wanted to go back to this book and see what it felt like for me to read it again, and yes, I am fully sold. I really love it. I think it's just so beautifully explored. Even the side characters have real significance, at least for me. So our main character, who doesn't pass day to day, has, it seems, a black servant who seems to have an African name, and I feel like this is really quite significant. It shows her class, and I think she gets upset when her friend that does pass, Claire is this focus character, and when Claire wants to talk to the servants, not only is Claire showing her class in feeling she can just walk into their quarters and just talk to them while they're meant to be working, but it's also showing up our protagonist, because our protagonist does not like it when Claire wants to interact with the help. So I think it's a really interesting intersection of class and race that is explored. There is some moments of real opulence, especially when we're talking about Claire. It's almost erotic the way that our character talks about Claire, but there is a tinge of venom underneath it sometimes, and I think it's just really gorgeously done. I think I want to read more of Nella Larsen and see what else she has to offer, because that was amazing. I appreciate it so much more, and as an adult I'm so glad I went back to it. I think I should maybe go back to more things like this and just see how much more I can get out of them with the knowledge and with all I have now around literature. So I have a few honourable mentions. First is Geek Love, which was on my TBR, but I didn't get around to it. I was just too distracted by other good books. I'm really excited to read it this month though. It is the last of my Christmas presents and it is weird by the sounds of it and explores some very dark stuff. Next honourable mention, Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, and this is the next of the series. My QPP and I were gonna try and read something else, but we ended up just going to Becky Chambers again because we want the warm hug. We are somewhat like a third in, and we aren't really seeing where the plot is yet. I'm really hoping that it comes together and gives us something satisfying through all of this build-up. So yes, excited. Threads of Life, something else I'm reading. It's like the history of embroidery, but also a bit of memoir, and I just think I'm just really loving it so far. Absolutely loving it. I'm just reading a chapter a night and going from like the Bayeux Tapestry to, say, like a mental health hospital in Glasgow, where men are learning to put together a pair of curtains, like just showing all these worlds that involve sewing and embroidery and the things that they can give to our lives. Yes, I think I'm gonna absolutely love this book. The last honourable mention is The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Roffey, and I am partway through this because of a technical issue, because it's an audiobook. I didn't finish it by the end of the month, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Very visceral exploration of this. Yes, I'm excited to see where it goes. I don't want to say any more. Great on audiobook as well, because it has the patois, it has the accent, and I think that really helps get the story across in a way that I wouldn't have been able to if I was reading it off the page. So that's it for this month's wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, and remember to subscribe if you like these videos as well. Also go and check out that vlog. I'll leave a link at the end. Just go check it out. It's got some chill vibes, and some snow, and the beach, and some sewing, and books. What more can you ask for? I will see you next week with a seaside haul just for fun, and the week after I'm going to go through my audiobook TBR, so if you're interested in any of those, subscribe, stick around, and I will see you soon. Bye bye! I am trying. You want me to do something I'm not made for. I can't change what I am, Pepper. I can't think like you or react like you just because I'm stuck behind the same kind of face right now. This face, you have no idea what it's like to walk past that mirror by the door every morning to see a face that belongs to someone else.